Well, hello and welcome back. My name's Kieron Seamons. This is my inky world, and today's question is all about the textures that I am using for some of the Worry Lips illustrations, as you can see there on some of the drawings. And I've been asked if I could talk my way through one or two of them. Yes, okay. It usually takes quite a bit of time, but let's try it. Let's do it. Let's get into some inky textures. Okay. So inky textures. Um, Now this really works for Worry Lips in this instance. I don't really use it for any other, but I do set up a lot of textures if I'm doing illustrations, and that just basically is most of this type of thing is kind of like you have an idea, you have an image of how you want color to fall, and or how you want certain things. Now you've got iPads and all that junk, but well, I say junk, but I mean it's quite amazing that if you're kind of like not interested in all the exploring of art, you pick up an iPad and it'll just go, I want Worry Lips texture. There you go, done. Brush, paint. But it doesn't really, in my world, it's like, well, it's kind of like takes all the fun out of everything. It's like, I'm sure they'll come up with some iPad app for sex next. It's like, okay, I already want to have sex. Beep. Okay, thank you. Right, next I'll go and cook a sandwich. It's like cheese sandwich. Beep. There you are, cheese sandwich. What's the point? It's like we're losing all these amazing feelings, and I get an amazing feeling from this. I get such a beautiful feeling from putting these drawings together. And that for me is like 90% of the book. Selling the book and making some money at the end, well, that's all kind of like bonus. But doing these drawings and putting those textures together and putting the drawing together, putting down the ink and seeing some of the thickness. Look at some of the thickness on that ink. Look, you can see it's shining, it's so thick. Okay, now what it does is it kind of takes away the pleasure. It's kind of like doing yoga or something. You actually have to do it to feel it. Do you see what I mean? All the time you're getting some machine to do the art process for you. You're giving all that juicy feelings away. And even to the point of making a mistake and screwing up. That's part of the journey, part of the excitement. Now, I'm going to point out a couple of things here. I've got Indian ink, but I've got inks at textures. I don't know if you can see. Well, you can't really see, but I've got big jars here, huge big glass jars like this one here. Look, and each one has a staged process. So you've got water, nothing in it, and then you've got kind of muddy, murky water, and then you've got kind of like dark grey water, and then you've got textured water, and then you've got black, almost black textured water, which comes in at different levels. So the whole process of this is to build up levels. And the only way to get that kind of texture is to put down the levels and then take some of it away. Now that's the magic. Okay? That's the magic. For example, like with this guy here, I wanted this texture to fall over. And this, in my mind, is what night looks like. When you're sitting in the dark, it's not dark, it's not black. It's like lots of grayness, lots of like speckled feelings. And that's how I wanted this night feeling to come across. So you feel, even though there's a lot of white there, you've got this feeling that he's coming out of the night. And that, for me, was everything. So I've tried to build this up, and I'm using some different types of spray here. I'm using a balance of water. I'm using a balance of some alcohol sprays, something like that, just to kind of break. You know, you can use terps or whatever to see how your tests will be. You can do this with I've seen people doing it with watercolors and little bits of bleach and stuff like that, or white spirit or things like that. And it kind of like you put the paint down, then you take it away, and then you put it down, you take it away, and you're going back and forward in this type of magical dance almost. And that really is where all this joy comes from. And I don't really think you can get to that stage without making a few mistakes. Okay, so if I make a mistake, don't look at the mistake. Feel this journey. And it does get quite exciting because you're putting things down while they're wet, and then you're taking them away while they're wet, and then you're kind of dancing back and forward, putting more on, taking more off. So I don't know if this will work, but let's see how we get on. Now you need kind of like a big brush for this. Don't be all piddly and with little, you know, don't get a little brush like that with a little point and you tick. Don't get a big fat brush where you can make a mess. Right, so what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and paint in some of these textures. Okay. Now, this really has to be a dance here. So we are moving quick and we are thinking quick. And we're not really trying to get too kind of precious with it. And this is my first kind of level here. So I'm trying to keep a certain amount of space around Norman. I don't want us to feel like, see, this is already starting to dry a little bit here, so keep that nice and wet. I don't really want Norman to feel like he's sitting in the dark. I want us to feel that there is a light that's coming in from this window next to him. Behind the goldfish there's a light that's coming in, and it's indicating morning. Okay, now that's kind of nice. That's quite good. That kind of gives me a nice feeling. I'm gonna put in a little bit of a break here. Now what this is going to do, this is just a little bit of mixture of alcohol and water, and what it does is it breaks down the texture. And if you do all water, or you do all of texture, or you do all of alcohol or all of water, you kind of get a kind of too much of one and not enough of. See the way there? That is just the mixture now. It's the paint with the water with a little bit of alcohol, and it's mixed, and now it's giving me a second level. The second level here is giving me this darkness underneath. So as I paint the new level on top, it becomes soft, it becomes gentle. Now you'll see that as I come up here. And you can see that there is a very clear difference between the under level and the second level. I'm going to try to get that up here. Now I've got one of the problems with this is that my two jars are pretty much the same. So I have to kind of test smell. So one is water. So this one is water. So I'm spraying down here because I want the ink to be softened away. I want it to bleed away as it's doing there. You can see it's bleeding off into the sunshine, if you see what I mean. Like there is sunshine coming through that window, and that's where it's bleeding off there. Now, this here is getting heavy. I put down a second level there because what I want is I want my alcohol to texturize it. And that's a mix. You got to kind of play with it to get that mix. And what you're kind of getting there is you're starting to get a little bit of See here, I need to darken up a little bit around where he is, and that will, again, that will become right. Now I'm going to go for another jar here, same brush, but don't worry about it. And this is a little bit more heavy on the texture, and what it will do is it'll kind of, this will give me a little bit more of a grainy approach. So if I kind of get in there early, you can use a paintbrush for this. You can use a paintbrush to go in and dab it, and probably in most cases for you I would probably say go and dab it, because it will give you a nice. Now what it's beginning to do here is it's beginning to give me a beautiful array of textures, and it's breaking everything down into a very, very, very gentle. Right, take it away from his head. That's what I don't want. So as you can see, as I'm building this texture around the character, this has nothing to do with the character at this point. It's kind of getting to that exciting part where I'm controlling the atmosphere, I'm controlling the time. Okay, and the time of day here is it's very early in the morning when Norman has woken up, and he's gone down to see the fish, and he's at that point where he's kind of like, so you can see there, as I went away, I left this part down here. I left it too long to dry. So what it's actually done is it's kind of given me a hard edge, and that I'm not happy with that. So I'm going to have to try and soften that down somewhere there. There you go. That's softened. And the same over here. Now that I've been dodging with that, I've got to. And like I said, I mean, you can kind of like use. I'll use the feeler as a paintbrush, but you can kind of do this in a paintbrush form, and you can kind of stab on some of this water texture. Okay. And what it will do is that you then have to step back and control it. Okay, so at this point up here, I'm kind of controlling how that dark, it's a dark patch there. I don't want a dark patch. I want to keep it textured. I want to keep it gentle. I want to keep the breaking up feelings around him, which is very, it's quite difficult to control, but at the same time, as that's drying, it's breaking away from the texture that I'm putting down. A little bit more of that grainy texture. Just a little bit more in there just to kind of soften down some of those areas. So as you can see, as I'm approaching the illustration on this, it really is quite a important thing here for me to keep things soft. And the softer you will have a little bit of a wrinkle if you want to tape your paper down. I just don't, because I get into the situation where I like to move things around as I'm doing it. Now, so this gives me now this thing, and what I would usually do is I would usually put that to the side and let it dry. Okay, but for this demonstration, because we're on the internet and everything happens instantly and everything is super fast and everybody's too eager and too desperate for everything, that we are going to get in and we're going to attempt, I say attempt because usually I throw that on the side, let that dry, and then I go on to a different illustration. But for this process, I'm going to get in and I'm going to paint. In this case, I'm just going to start. Now, all we're thinking about here with Norman is I'm trying not to think too much about anything except light. Because at this point here, I'm really trying to get this feeling. I'm not going to paint the head of that because I know that it's going to bleed in on me. But I am trying to get to this point here. Let's get a softer brush. This is again with some more of a kind of a watery feeling. We're going way down. Do you see I'm working backwards? I'm putting heavy textures on and then working backwards to find the light, to control the light on this illustration. The sun is coming from this side on, and you can see there's some lovely drying textures that are coming up there. I'm very pleased with that. I'm just going to soften that down a little bit there. You see, this is where I always get kind of like a little bit fed up with people, because this is a challenge. This is like a battle to control all that thing with the ink and with the water and with the alcohol and with everything else, all the texture that I've built up there in that jar. And I'm going to tell you what the secret ingredient is. But I'm sure you clever people will go in and find it. But what it does is it gives me this, it's almost like a ballet of putting down levels and textures to find what we're looking for. And by doing real with a paintbrush art, with a pen, with ink, with paint, you get that luxury feeling. You get that beautiful adventure. And we're just using, this is just dirty water basically at the moment. Only dirty water. And you know, I've had people before kind of saying, Kieron, why are you painting with dirty water? Because dirty water or inky water, you know, it's like the leftovers, where it's the jar where was my water, and now I've washed my brushes in it, and it comes up with this kind of texture in it that sometimes you just don't know what's in it. Now, you can't really see it here, but as I start to put it down, you'll see lots of little kind of things floating in it. And that is where Norman's clothing, that's where it kind of turns into this kind of, like you can almost touch the texture in Norman's shirt. You look at the drawings and you can almost feel the texture in there. You can feel his shirt. And that only comes from this texture that's in the water. This kind of natural occurring. I have to concentrate here for a minute while I'm doing the stripes, because in the early days I would constantly keep painting the wrong stripe, and he would end up with double stripes and single stripes and God knows what around. So there we're starting to have the build up, and we're starting to get that lovely feeling there of Norman and the shadow. And again, that texture, you can, if you get in close, you can see the texture on the trousers, and that for me is just beautiful. So I know that people have asked me to demonstrate this, and it is quite it's quite time exhausting, to be very honest. I mean, I do spend a lot of time here. I mean, this is quite a rushed thing, and I will have to go in and fix up some parts where I'm unhappy. I'm unhappy with that part up there next to the face, for example. But with the texture there and the light coming through, I'm very, very happy with that. Let's see if I can touch that up while I'm there. And don't be afraid to get in there and use your fingers sometimes, just to move textures around, move the image around. And for me, this is really beginning to bring the atmosphere of the morning, of him playing his ukulele to entertain the fish, which is part of the story. He sings, "You are my sunshine," to the goldfish. The joke is that the fish is actually a very grumpy fish. He's always kind of complaining and about something, you know, and when Norman comes down into the room, it's kind of like the grumpy fish, you know. It's like, yeah, it's kind of that feeling of, yeah, you are my sunshine, you know. Right, so we have a lovely, let's just get some grayness again there. Too much. So you've got to be really careful about how you're controlling this illustration, because everything is grey. So just checking that my camera is still working. You've got to be careful that you're not putting too much grey next to too much grey, and you see, I feel like at the back here I've kind of got, I might have to kind of, yeah, I'm just going to break that down a little bit more. See, a little bit of a mixture up there with elements will kind of, you know, it's finding out what works for you, you know. If you're painting and you want to take away something, you know, there's certain ways. I know that a lot of very kind of controlled artists, I'm not really a controlled artist because I get too impatient. But I know that some people use masking fluid. I do have some masking fluid somewhere. In fact, there it is. I bought some masking fluid, and it just, I don't know, just made everything so clean, and it kind of made me a little bit unhappy with it. That it had made everything so clean. You know, you're kind of peeling things off. You got a perfect line. I don't want a perfect line. I want to be able to feel my character is in that environment, in that texture around him, as we do here with Norman. And I'm really happy with the idea that Norman is in the texture around him, in the darkness around. I don't know how much of that texture will pick up, but at the moment it's giving me this beautiful dark corner of a room, and the sun is coming through, and it's all kind of like breaking up around where he is, and that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't really want to get to the point where, I mean, I've got to be careful with my words here, but I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, there's light in the room." Okay, well, let's do that big kind of big pyramid of sunbeams coming through. Blech. No, thank you, no, thank you, no, thank you. Let's feel that sun. Stay away from all those kind of like, like I was trying to explain before about in the concept of illustration. The concept of illustration is basically reinventing some of those well-trodden and overly trodden kind of images that we have, You know, I can imagine if somebody else was to do this, they might do it in a way that the goldfish is there, and Norman is sitting there, and there's this big triangle of light beaming through and they've darkened down everything else and softened it all down and made it all gooey and sweet, and that's exactly what I don't want. I don't want it to be gooey and sweet. I want it to be the sun breaking through that stage. I wanted the sun to feel like it's almost disturbing the morning. It's almost like pushing the darkness out of the way. And the only way to do that is to break up those textures in between. And for me, in this part here, I'm extremely, extremely happy with how that texture has come up. I will put that down, but I will attack it. And the attack is because I don't want the darkness of the ink. I want to put it down and stain the paper, then pull it away. And that's what I'm trying to do here with this, because it'll give me this gentle feeling of light, the middle way between the light and the dark, that middle part with the speckles of both. And I'm quite happy with that. Now at this point here, there is a point where I'm going to have to leave it to dry. There is a point. It's just I'm going to have to leave it to settle. But it gives you a very good breakdown of a method of breaking textures and trying to use what you have, using the water. Another technique is basically like with clouds, about painting down your blue and then putting your tissue paper on, a big lump of tissue paper, and putting it on and then taking the blue off, and you've got these lovely soft white clouds. And I'll do that very much with these textures here, as I'm doing here around the back of Norman's head. I'm feeling that needs to be, and I'm just pulling off. You can see that I'm pulling the ink off. I put the ink down to stain, and then I can gently take it off to get that grade of ink that I want. And that really has come up very, very, very nice. Now, there's a few things in here to do, but I will do when they're a little bit more dry. Obviously, I need to do a little bit more detail on the ukulele. But there's a few little details in there, and I want them to be details. And if I do the details too early, that's right, they kind of melt out and bleed out and destroy the whole thing. But I hope I can't remember. This person doesn't have a name. It has a kind of like a code in his name. But thank you very much for your question, and thank you very much for giving me an excuse to make another video. Oh, I do like my videos. And also a very big thank you to everybody, because we have broken the 27,000 viewers every month. 27,000 people have come over to watch the channel, and it's just absolutely incredible that there's 27,000 people that are coming over Another nice technique there is putting down something and then waiting till it dries enough to stain, and then putting water on top of it, and you pull a little bit of the color away from it, and it softens down some of those lines, as we have done here on the table. But 27,000 people have come to watch our environment, our art channel, our art community. You and me, we made this, and we have 27.158 thousand people watching every single month. So very, very big thank you. If we can do that, 27,000 people, and they all go and buy one of my books, wherever my books are. There is one. Yeah, 27,000 people. Please go and buy a book. Thank you. Wouldn't that be amazing? 27,000 people watching the channel and 27,000 people going to buy a delicious, gorgeous book. And if you don't buy the first book, you won't know what's going to happen in the second book. And the second book is so close now. As you can see, these illustrations are beginning to finish. So, thank you very, very, very much for your questions, your support, your donations. Thank you for your donations as well. All those little pennies that you send me go to ink and paper. And you keep this channel moving. You keep it alive. You keep it ticking along. And the longer this channel is alive, the happier we all are. Okay? So that is Norman sitting on the table, serenading Pinky the goldfish. And I hope that answers a lot of questions about using texture and using these in an explorative way. You know, get in there and explore what you have. Explore why ink doesn't like this, paint doesn't like that. Or you could soften things, or you could take things away. And I do a lot of this. I do what I call paint sheets. There's another one there, look. Loads and loads of these kind of paint textures about this one was too soft. This one I got a little bit of the kind of bleachiness in there that took things away a little bit more, and I enjoyed that more. Whereas the other one I was trying to put down a little bit more speckled, and I was trying to be very, very careful about the speckling. Whereas when I started to go towards the other direction, I was actually trying to naturally find the speckling, and naturally finding it was the result. So there's loads and loads and loads and loads of paper that I use to kind of test things out. And it's a very, 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 very important thing. In the same way that you should test out your nibs, you should test out your brushes. What seems to work and why certain things work. And if you use a certain brush with a certain type of paint that doesn't react to another certain type of paint, or reacts weird to alcohol or turpentine, or see how you can use that in certain textures in your artwork, and you will be very, very, very pleased. Okay, so that is the little sunny morning with Norman playing his ukulele, and there will be a final illustration. Obviously at the moment there's still some things in there I want to do, but it's just too wet. But that's the main body of the illustration. The main bones of it are there for you. And I will see you back very soon for some more. Thank you for the donations. Thank you for the subs. Don't forget to subscribe as well. You got 27,000 people. And it's like a very high percentage of those people come back every month. Every month I got 25 to 27,000 people. Just hit that subscribe button. You don't pay for a subscription. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that people will look at it and say, oh, he's got 27,000 subscriptions. Well, that must be a good fun channel. I'll go and check that out. So, thank you very much. Have a fantastic day. And I'll see you back here again very, very, very soon for some more fun. Some more craziness. Some more drawing. See you soon. Bye-bye.